I'm here with Alexander McCurry, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, we have been covering Christopher Steele, I would say, just as good as anybody. Where everybody has ignored him, we've kept a focus on Christopher Steele, the MI6 agent that is one of the central, if not the central player, along with maybe Glenn Simpson, Rod Rosenstein. Probably these three guys are the central players in the Russiagate hoax, and especially in that scandalous dossier, Steele dossier, Trump dossier, the one that BuzzFeed published a couple of years ago and set this whole process in motion. Now we have new reports that reveal that Steele was actually using, to formulate a lot of the narrative in the dossier, he was actually using posts from random individuals on the CNN website. These weren't journalists. These were people that were creating posts on a section in CNN called I Report. In other words, you or me may have had an iReport account. It had open access and you were free to publish. It didn't have any editorial control. And you would create a post and you would publish it. And, from that point on, people would read your post and you'd promote it, etc. Huffington Post does something very, very similar with many writers that they have as well. But these are not journalists. These are not verified. This is not verified information. This is not double or triple checked whatsoever. These are just posts from writers that CNN grants access to. What do you make of this?
Well, I think this is extremely important news. And can I just say, you spoke about the importance of Christopher Steele. It is extremely important to remember that the only document that claims to be evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and his campaign and the Russian government and intelligence services is the dossier that Christopher Steele compiled. That dossier was the whole start of the collusion story, and by the admission of various people, it was what was the frame. It provided the frame narrative for the Mueller investigation, and it was accepted as true by people like Adam Schiff right at the start of Russiagate. Russiagate would not have happened without the Trump dossier. And the Trump dossier, this dossier that Steele created, was also used by James Comey in his first meeting as Donald Trump, just before Donald Trump was inaugurated, which we now know that Donald Trump thought that was an attempt to blackmail him. So this is a critically important document. And now we have this extraordinary admission from Christopher Steele, who has always claimed that he got his information from sources, secret sources, mostly within Russia, some from all sorts of other places, including, it turns out, the United States. But he's now frankly admitted that he was getting information from the news media, and that these weren't even verified reports. They were reports posted by various people who had no special knowledge about anything. I think this is as extraordinary as it gets, because this critically important document, accepted by the Democrats, used by the deep state, the FBI, the CIA, and all the others, apparently extracts of which were provided to Obama, which was shown to Donald Trump as an exercise which Trump thought was an exercise in blackmail. Turns out that parts of it may have derived, in fact, did derive from things that Christopher Steele had read in the media.
People's lives were ruined. People's lives were destroyed on posts created by just random individuals. That Steele was I think we said it before we did this show, that Steele was just too lazy to even do any research whatsoever. He just went on the internet, grabbed a couple of posts, and threw them into a dossier. I'm summarizing, maybe simplifying it a little, but that's pretty much what's going on here.
You're not simplifying too far. Now, can I just tell you something? When I first read the dossier myself, which was back in February 2017, you can go back in time and you can see some of the things I wrote about it at the time. It was obvious to me right from the first moment that this thing didn't make any kind of sense. And I very quickly picked up that it was actually following the news. In other words, that it was being a lot of it was being written on the basis of things that were being reported in the media. So the first entries of the dossier don't talk about hacking by the Russians of the DNC, because there had been no talk about that yet. This was before Julian Assange and WikiLeaks published any emails that had been hacked or stolen or taken from the DNC or leaked from the DNC. Instead, it claimed that the Russians were going to leak information from a secret dossier they had of Hillary Clinton. And then, of course, that didn't happen. And we got instead the DNC email leaks. And then, surprise, surprise, the dossier shifted and said that it was all going to come out of it was all due to hacking. And it went into this elaborate story about how the Russians hack things. And then it went into a further story saying how one Russian official, Mr. Peskov, who was the press spokesman, was being criticized by various people within the Russian government for orchestrating this thing. And then a few weeks later, when instead of Mr. Peskov getting sacked, it was a man called Ivanov who got sacked from the Russian government for something completely unrelated, suddenly Peskov was forgotten and we moved on to Ivanov. And the most interesting thing about all of this is that I have seen other people who went into this in much more detail than I have done. And recently, the same exercise was done by Andrew McCarthy over at A National Review, going through all the various allegations that you see on the dossier. And without exception, they all seem to have come from the media. And here we see Christopher Steele admitting that he was getting information from the media, only not even, it turns out, from real reporters. So it's bizarre to me that this thing was ever taken seriously at all. As you rightly say, the damage it has done has been tremendous. And I think it is high time that Christopher Steele was asked some serious questions, not just in a court case, which has been brought against him in London, where he is being sued for defamation by a man called Gubarev, who has been in some way involved in the dossier, but properly questioned by the FBI, by investigators from the US, and brought to answer for what he did before congressional committees. It is staggering to me that we're finding these things out in this way.
Yeah, I agree. McCarthy, Dan Bongino, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, they've uncovered a lot of the hoax in Russiagate and the Steele dossier. There's no doubt about it. And I agree
it's entirely them. I mean, It's entirely down to them. It's not, as I said, the congressional committees. They haven't really been looking at this. It's obviously not the FBI and special counsel. On the contrary, they believed all this nonsense.
Craig Jarrett, Hannity, Tucker Carlson. Yeah. I mean, it's literally maybe 10 people. Most of them in Fox News have been the ones that have been drilling into this.
And don't forget us, Alex. I mean, we've written quite a bit about this. I mean, there's some pretty good articles about this. But as I said, it's very, very strange and very worrying that this is so. And as I said, we're only getting these dribbles of facts because somebody is suing Christopher Steele in defamation in the High Court in London, and we're getting dribs and drabs of things coming out of a court case. I mean, that's not a satisfactory way to look at a document that has been so important.
Yeah, and let's not forget that you had this document, and here I'm going to connect some more dots. You had the document was passed off to McCain, and it was just kind of floating there. And a lot of people forget that a lot of news agencies, they passed on this document before. They knew about this. Absolutely. McCain was floating it around everywhere. He hated Trump. He was a big anti-Trumper. Of course, McCain was considered to be the de facto president of the deep state. That was his kind of position in the U.S. government for God knows how many years. And he was, passing this document around. Many news agencies, they didn't want to touch it because they knew it was complete crap. BuzzFeed picked up on it. But we also forget that it wasn't the shrewdness of Robbie Mook and John Podesta and these guys that kind of saw this dossier, connected the fact that they were such idiots. I mean, those guys were complete fools. That one, they lost the election for Hillary Clinton. Number two, they had all their systems, hacked, or God knows what happened to their stuff. I mean, Podesta's password was password on his iPhone for his email. So I mean, these guys were idiots, but they managed to somehow connect the dossier with the hacking, and then they pushed that narrative. 17 intelligence agencies said Russia meddled the election. Here's the dossier, and they put those two things together, and here you go.
Yes, I mean, they couldn't have done it without active collusion, and I use that word carefully, active collusion on the part of some people in the CIA and the FBI, and it turns out in the Justice Department, who were clearly looking for ways to help Hillary Clinton and to stop Donald Trump. Because if there'd been a proper investigation of these claims, if Christopher Steele had been called in and questioned properly and thoroughly, this whole thing would have collapsed very, very quickly. And it is important to stress that Christopher Steele wasn't just inactive. He wasn't just active in compiling this dossier. He was also, at Glenn Simpson's instigation, speaking to the media all the time. And the FBI, when they found out about that, they went through the motions of sacking him as an informer. Their rules require. What they actually did was they set up this back channel to him through Bruce Orr in the Justice Department, so that he was able to continue to feed them with information. So one mustn't just say that these people, just that it was just a Podesta and Mook and all the others. It was actually people within the US government who were playing an active role in spreading this story and in spreading this information and giving credence to it. And if you remember, if you go back to late 2016, that was the time when we were having all that inundation of leaks to the media, which were all clearly being used to destabilize Donald Trump, especially in advance of his inauguration, by amplifying allegations, many of which were very obviously derived from this dossier.
No, let's not forget. I mean, okay, you have Mook and Podesta were getting orders from Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, who are essentially the U.S. government. I mean, they're the ones. God knows how many people they have under them that they're controlling. Of course, you have the Clinton Loretta Lynch tarmac meeting, and there's many people now that are signaling that Obama was very well in the know as to what was going on completely from start to finish. And he greenlit a lot of this stuff to get passed on. The leaks, the dossier, the intelligence agencies, monitoring Carter Page, all these people. Obama was also in the know. So, I mean, yes. I think there was a very large upper echelon to the top of the U.S. government that knew exactly what was happening.
Of course they did. I mean, the key event for me, the thing that brought it all together, and which people have not looked into in enough detail, is that in August, heating up, we're moving towards November when the voting actually happens. In August 2016, we know that US intelligence, that's Clapper and Brennan, and presumably the FBI, consulted with Obama and provided him with a detailed report about what they said. This is the official story. They officially informed him about Russian interference, and it is extremely likely. And I'm not saying just. I think it is a certainty that some of that information consisted of the dossier, or at least those parts of. That Christopher filing that had at that point been written. So Obama was absolutely in the know. He knew exactly what was going on, but we really need to get to the bottom of what happened in that critical meeting in August 2016. And if there's ever going to be a proper investigation of this, that is one of the key events in this whole story that really needs to be looked into and examined properly.
All right, and none of this was lost on Trump. I'm going to read you 2 Trump tweets, and you can close it out with commentary on those Trump tweets. Report: Christopher Steele backed up his Democrat and crooked Hillary paid-for fake and unverified dossier with information he got from send-in watchers of low ratings CNN. This is the info that got us the witch hunt. So it was indeed just proven in court papers, last in his class, Annapolis, John McCain, that sent the fake dossier to the FBI and media, hoping to have it printed before the election. He and the Dems, working together, failed as usual. Even the fake news refused this garbage. So there you have it. Trump is connecting Christopher Steele, the Democrats, CNN, and John McCain, all in 2 tweets. What do you make of it?
Well, he's joining the dots, just as you did before, and I'm sure he's right. I've no doubt about it. I mean, and the role of John McCain in all of this is something that we really do need to look into much more, because clearly he was playing a very active role behind the scenes in trying to stop Donald Trump, and of course he continued to do so. He continued to oppose Donald Trump in the Senate right up until his final illness, and when he was no longer able to do so anymore. So Donald Trump is joining the dots. I'm sure, I have absolutely no doubt, he is right. But we need a proper investigation to join the dots formally, to get a proper understanding of what was going on and to see what, if any, crimes were being committed during this period. Because I find it very difficult to believe that all this activity did not involve some kind of criminal, some criminal offences. Now, I'm going to just make one observation here where I think Donald Trump may have gone slightly wrong, and I think a lot of people are. I don't think it mattered very much that the Trump dossier, this dossier, was not published before the election. It's important to stress that many of the more sensational and circumstantial claims were written into the dossier after the election. The fact of the matter is the dossier was used before the election by the media to spread the story that there was collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. And the fact that it appeared to be coming from different sources, because that was the impression the media was giving, rather than from this absurd document, I think may have given it even more credence than it would have done if the dossier itself, with all its fantastic claims, had actually been published. So I think that the dossier was more useful to the Democrats kept secret than it was if it had been published. If it had been published, its absurdity would have been obvious to many people, and I doubt it would have survived the scrutiny of a presidential election campaign.
All right. Alexander McCain, Senator-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. In the description box down below, you'll find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. That really helps us out a lot. And remember, you can get a copy of this video in audio format. Follow us on iTunes and SoundCloud as well. And don't forget to go to theduran.com and see all the articles that Alexander is looking up to every day. Alexander McCain, Senator-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you once again. Until next time, everybody, take care.